Over the years, I have come to realize that growth is not built through big life decisions. We do not become stronger, wiser, healthier, or more fulfilled because of one dramatic leap forward. Our lives are not defined by a single choice. Instead, they are shaped by repetition, the habits we practice, the standards we uphold, the things we decide are non-negotiable. The small actions we repeat every day eventually become the life we live. And those small actions are what separate progress from standing still. There is an illusion that many of us buy into, that if we want a different life, we need a dramatic breakthrough, a new job, a new relationship, a different city, a fresh start. We convince ourselves that growth lives in the big decisions. But while those decisions can offer a different perspective, they don't create lasting transformation. We don't become different people simply because we look in a new direction. Growth doesn't happen because we repack our baggage into a different backpack. It happens through the hundreds of small steps we take along our path, in the many choices we make every day. Getting up when the alarm goes off, going for a walk instead of staying on the couch, having the difficult conversation, sticking to the budget we set, holding boundaries even when others don't like them. Growth is built inside those moments, one step at a time. I learned this lesson firsthand while walking Araroa. There were days when I looked towards the horizon and couldn't comprehend how I was supposed to get there. The landscape stretched endlessly ahead of me, showing the kilometers that still needed to be walked. My feet hurt, my shoulders ached, the weather looked threatening, and the weight of my backpack felt heavier than it had any right to be. Sometimes the distance ahead felt impossible, but I knew there was only one way forward. I had to take another step, and then another, and another. What surprised me wasn't what happened when I looked ahead. It was what happened when I looked behind me. When I turned around and saw the distance I had already walked. The hills, the valleys, the rivers, the stretches of coastline. All of it had once sat on the horizon ahead, looking impossible. And yet somehow my own 2 feet had carried me across its distance. There is something incredibly powerful about seeing tangible proof of what consistent effort can achieve. Not because I was extraordinary, and not because I had special gear, but because I simply kept moving. Stephen Wright once said, "Everywhere is within walking distance if you have the time." I think growth works much in the same way. The difference is that every day we aren't using our feet, we're using our tools. Over the years, I've collected many tools that support my growth. Running, journaling, reading, therapy, nature, meaningful conversations, creativity, goal setting. On their own, they seem insignificant, but together, repeated over time, they have the power to completely change the direction of my life. The problem was that I stopped using them. One by one, I convinced myself that they weren't essential. I was too busy, too tired. I'd get back to them later. Instead, I relied on one tool for almost everything: resilience. I told myself to just keep going, push through, grit your teeth, survive. Resiliency is a valuable tool, but it isn't designed to solve every problem, and it certainly isn't designed to let you thrive. Yet, I treated every challenge in my life as though it required the same response. It was like trying to build an entire house with only a hammer. Eventually, I realized I wasn't really moving forward anymore. I had been walking for years, yet going in circles. I had stopped growing, and instead, I had shrunk myself. My life was far from what I imagined for myself to thrive. Growth doesn't come from owning the tools in our toolbox. It comes from using them consistently, repeatedly, over time, much like a parent guides a child. As parents, we naturally create standards for our children. We encourage them to sleep well, move their bodies, spend time outside, eat nutritious food, brush their teeth, not because we're controlling, but because we know those things support their well-being. They're the foundation that allow our children to thrive. They're acts of care that reflect our love for them. Yet many of us stop extending that same care to ourselves. We know what helps us feel our best, but we often treat those things as optional, things that we'll get around to one day, when life settles down, when we have more time, when we're less stressed, when we feel ready. But growth doesn't begin when everything finally is in place. It doesn't start when you have more energy or more time or the perfect circumstances. Growth begins when we stop treating our well-being as optional, when we start creating non-negotiables, when we raise our standards out of care rather than criticism, when we become the parent responsible for our own well-being. Over the years, I have had many people tell me they could never walk to Araroa. They didn't have the right gear or the right fitness, the right age or the right experience. And I understand the thinking, as I've had moments where I thought the same. But the trail doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't ask whether you're ready. It asks whether you're willing to take the next step. That's it. Nowadays, people often complete long-distance trails with less weight in their pack and more technology than I ever had. They carry GPS, solar panels, and personal locator beacons. They have social media groups, established support networks, and long-standing signage along the trail. There is a community on the trail to compete with, rely on, and encourage you to keep going. Those things are all helpful, but none of them determines a person's ability to walk 3,000 kilometers. The only thing you need is to keep taking the next step, kilometer after kilometer, day after day. And growth works exactly in the same way. Whatever life you want, whatever goal you're chasing, whatever version of yourself you're trying to become, you don't need perfect conditions. You don't need the right background. You don't need every answer before you begin. You simply need to keep taking the next step forward. It is through the repetitive action of our lives that we grow. It is through the standards that we maintain where we are able to build the life we want. The concept is simple, but the reality takes time. Nobody creates a life that they thrive in overnight. Nobody walks Te Araroa in 24 hours. Nobody builds a house in a day. Everything happens in stages, one decision at a time, one step at a time, one tool at a time. Growth is no different. We spend so much time focusing on the finished product, the dream house, the life we envision, the goal we want, the person we hope to become. But our brains resist thinking about the daily actions required to build it. Growth asks us to become intentional, to pay attention to what tools we are using, to build a life that upholds standards that we want to maintain. Because every action is a step along our path. Every habit is another brick added to the wall. Whether we realize it or not, we are building a life. The question is, are we building it intentionally, or are we simply hoping what we want appears on its own? It's time we stop waiting for a breakthrough, to stop walking in circles, to stop treating our intentions as optional, and instead use more than the hammer in our toolbox. We have the power to change our lives just by taking one more step forward, making one more habit that supports our well-being, establishing one more non-negotiable that help us thrive. Because growth has never been about one giant leap forward. It's always been about the small steps we're willing to repeat every day. We need to remember that the horizon stretched out in front of us is not impossible to get to. It's up to us to continue moving forward to reach it, and before long, that distance we covered will be something we look back on. I'm Shalane, and I'm on here talking about growth, authenticity, and living our fullest lives. Join me, and let's keep moving one step at a time.